let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akugha as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, Mamode Akugha. Today's package is a mixed grill of politics, environment, and underdevelopment in the Niger Delta. We kickstart with a report on the deteriorating political climate in Edo State ahead of the governorship elections slated for September 19, 2020. Our next report takes a look at issues surrounding the non-compliance with President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) to immediately pay outstanding fees and allowances of its foreign scholars studying abroad. We will, in the course of the program, give an update on the state of abandoned NDDC projects in IBOM State, as well as the trending exchange between the Commission and Senator Peter NWAOBOSHI over allegations of an unexecuted contract. Moving on, we'll bring you reactions from Niger Deltans to the delay in the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill, which has lingered in the National Assembly for over a decade. And finally, into this package is a report on the implementation of recommendations of the United Nations Environment Programme UNEP on environment pollution in OGONI land submitted to the federal government in August 2011. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region, will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, determined to make a difference.
Welcome back. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. Foreboding signs of violence during the September 19, 2020 governorship election in Edo State are already palpable as the crisis rocking the State House of Assembly deepens few weeks to the contest. In this report, correspondent Tekena Miofuri takes a look at the deteriorating political climate ahead of the governorship election, as well as options available to the political actors to avert violence at the polls.
Last week, the protracted crisis rocking the Edo State House of Assembly took a new twist. 17 members of the House belonging to the All Progressives Congress had a sitting outside the Assembly complex and impeached Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Frank Okie, and Deputy Speaker Yekini Idiaye for alleged misconduct.
Hereby move for the impeachment of the Speaker, Right Honorable Frank Okie, and Deputy Speaker for gross misconduct, high-handedness, and continued breach of the relevant sections of the House rules.
The lawmakers allege that contrary to the standard practice of inaugurating a full House, Governor Godwin Obaseki on June 17, 2019, chose to inaugurate the Edo State House of Assembly with only 9 members in attendance, adding that the impeached Speaker and his deputy acted as agents of the governor by preventing 14 of their colleagues from attending the inauguration. However, Governor Obaseki in a statewide broadcast maintained that the 14 lawmakers deliberately refused to present themselves for inauguration and stayed away from the assembly on their own volition. According to the governor, their seats were declared vacant after absenting themselves for a period of 180 sitting days.
Following this action by the leadership of the House, the 14 members-elect approached the Federal High Court, Abuja, to challenge the constitutionality or otherwise of the declaration of their seats vacant. This suit is still pending in the court. This unfortunate situation has festered because a former governor of the state is bent on throwing Edo State into crisis ahead of the forthcoming governorship elections.
The crisis in the Edo State House of Assembly, happening barely weeks to the September 19 governorship election, sends a wrong signal about the conduct and outcome of the forthcoming polls. This scenario has prompted reactions from several independent observers, including the United States government, which recently expressed concern over the roles played by some political actors ahead of the forthcoming elections, as well as reports of interference by security forces in the political affairs of Edo State. It is a wake-up call on security agents in the country to demonstrate their neutrality before, during and after the September 19 governorship election in Edo State. Furthermore, the Independent National Electoral Commission is expected to be impartial in its conduct of the Edo governorship election. This is to allow for free, fair and transparent polls whose outcome ought to be decided by the voting masses. For their part, the political actors are expected to play by the rules of the game to avert bloody violence throughout the electioneering period.
Inside the Niger Delta. Belema Oil Producing Limited, oil production and exploration company. Belema Oil, truly indigenous, world-class brand.
President Muhammadu Buhari earlier this month ordered the payment of fees and allowances of stranded students studying abroad under the Foreign Scholarship Scheme of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. It, however, appears that with the Commission's 2020 budget not yet passed by the National Assembly, it could take the Commission a while to comply with the presidential directive, as correspondent Chika Bodozie reports.
Beneficiaries of the NDDC 2018-2019 Foreign Scholarship Scheme recently stormed the Nigerian High Commission's office in London to protest non-payment of their fees and allowances. The students lamented that they were stranded and therefore appealed to President Buhari to intervene in their plight.
We are not interested in the politics that is going on. All we have come here for is to appeal to the President Muhammadu Buhari, to prevail on the management of NDDC, to please do the needful.
President Buhari responded immediately and directed the NDDC to pay all outstanding fees and allowances of the students. Our findings reveal, however, that the NDDC is constrained to immediately comply with the presidential directive following the delay in the passage of its 2020 budget by the National Assembly, as confirmed by the Commission's Acting Executive Director Projects, Dr. Cairo Ojugbo. In spite of the challenges it has encountered so far, Dr. Ojugbo noted that the Commission was exploring ways of raising funds to pay outstanding fees of its foreign scholars.
The late EDFA and myself, we have done everything until the matter reached the CBN. The CBN said, one, there is no budget for us to pay. And in fact, in the last public hearing, you heard when they were asking the MD, where this scholarship you want to pay, where are you going to get the vote from? So we said, look, these students are suffering overseas. We would like to pay them. Even begging them, please give us the opportunity to pay these students. They said no. So, but we didn't leave it like that. We are still looking for ways so that we can get the money out to pay them.
The plight of Niger Delta students studying abroad has equally drawn the attention of youths in the region who are calling on the National Assembly to immediately pass the 2020 budget of the NDDC to enable it to fund projects and programs begging for urgent attention in the Niger Delta.
Now right now we have our students in abroad. They are suffering. They have not paid their school fees. Because of the 2020 budget, they have not paid their school. So we are calling on the President to call on the nine National Assembly to pass this budget so that we can have the students pull out from that place.
In a related development, Acting Managing Director of the NDDC, Professor Keme Bradikumo Pondei, has set up a committee to facilitate the completion and commissioning of the Commission's permanent corporate headquarters in Port Harcourt. The project for the construction of a permanent office complex for the NDDC, awarded over 20 years ago by the defunct Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission, UMPADEC, has been revised, redesigned and amended several times without a completion schedule. Professor Pondei is optimistic that the completion of the project will enable the Commission function more effectively as an intervention agency.
The Commission has been a tenant operating out of rented buildings for over 20 years of its existence, denying it a home of its own from which to operate securely and strategically. Today we are happy that it has reached a final completion phase.
In no distant time, the NDDC Corporate Headquarters Building Project which is currently at a completion stage of over 90%, will be commissioned alongside the Ogbia-Nembe Road, jointly built by the Commission and Shell Petroleum Development Company to ease transportation hiccups in Bayelsa East Senatorial District.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Get to know the future. The future is ITEO.
Members of Ndo community in EKET local government area of Akwa Ibom State have called on the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC to get the contractor handling an abandoned water project in the area back to site. In the same vein, EKET, Uduma and other communities in the same area are pushing for the completion of abandoned road projects awarded by the NDDC some years back. Correspondent Ajay Nelson, who visited the project sites, has this report.
This is what is left of a comprehensive water project in Nduendu Okon EKET in EKET local government area. The water project awarded in 2017 by NDDC to Mangrove Swamp Limited to provide potable drinking water for the people of Nduendu. But sadly, the expectations of improved life by potable drinking water is far from coming true due to the non-completion of the water project, thereby exposing them to waterborne diseases and other health implications. According to residents, signposts bearing the contractor's vital information on site had been deliberately removed by the contractors, so they cannot be traced. Speaking on the abandoned water project, community leader Professor Itie Ben Akpan expressed displeasure at the high level of negligence by NDDC in delivering life-transforming and people-oriented project to the people of Nduendu community.
We as a community, we were very happy when they came and was grateful to NDDC. But our joy was short-lived when the contractor disappeared after 2018. They didn't come again, as you can see. All they did was to put up the stanchions. The tank was not done. The service water was not built.
Also abandoned is the Usung Urua Udoyang 2-kilometer road connecting Nduendu 1 and 2 villages awarded in 2014 to Eba and Son Limited. Evidently, the non-completion of this project has become nightmare to dwellers in these villages as houses are flooded whenever it rains, while the road remains impassable.
It could have been okay if they didn't come to do the road at all. This time that they came and abandoned it halfway, it is a terrible suffering.
Meanwhile, Friday, Tom Inyang, EKET Obiuk Afakata, EKET Odofia roads, as well as remedial works on the failed and unmotorable section of Senator Helen Iswene Mpok Way in EKET Odoma and Afagadong Inyang, Usuk Ikong communities in EKET are in a sorry state following the non-completion. Some residents lament on the hardship occasioned by the abandonment of the roads on the people.
This project started since 2011 and was abandoned towards 2012. So since then, we have not seen any response, and the village has wrote a petition towards this road. And since then, we've not heard anything. So we as a citizen, we have come up to inform government that the road here has been abandoned.
I am one of those, along with the Niger Delta people, clamoring for the outcome of the forensic audit. We need it so that we know how many contractors were paid and they didn't complete their project, or how many contractors were not paid. Forensic audit is the way out.
Apparently, the positive effects of the interventionist agency, NDDC, has not been felt by the intended beneficiaries. It therefore behoves on the Commission to change the present narrative and ensure these projects are completed in line with its core mandate to ameliorate the sufferings of the people in the oil-rich Niger Delta.
Inside the Niger Delta.
NDDC, established in the year 2000 to help develop Nigeria's Niger Delta region. After 2 decades, what is their scorecard?
the amount of money which the federal government is religiously allocating to NDDC. We would like to see the results on the ground.
They have been doing a lot in the last 19 years, but if they were doing quality projects, I'm sure that we would have seen so much on the ground.
What is the state of the NDDC project in your community? Tell us about it and we will report it. Send us an email to insidethenigerdelta@gmail.com or call us on 080-920-76444. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
As part of attempts by the Niger Delta Development Commission to get erring contractors to account for projects awarded to them, the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has written to Senator Peter Nwaaboshi, chairman of the Senate Committee on Niger Delta, demanding a refund of the sum of 2.5 billion naira paid for the production and supply of desks and chairs to schools in the Niger Delta region. In a letter authored by the Director Legal Services of the NDDC, Mr. Peter Okoro, it was disclosed that the contract awarded sometime in 2017 was in furtherance of the Commission's education sector mandate captured in its 2016 budget. Instead of supplying the chairs and desks to the Commission's warehouse in Port Harcourt, Senator Nwaaboshi allegedly moved the items to a private warehouse at the Benin Expressway in Okpanam, Asaba, Delta State. Excerpts from the letter read thus, that despite having fully paid for the 2017 contracts for the production of chairs and desks, the items have not been supplied to the Commission. The resultant effect is that the Commission and Niger Delta region have been deprived of the use of the desks and chairs. In his reaction, Senator Peter Nwaaboshi, however, distanced himself from the said contract and challenged the NDDC to institute a legal action against him to back his claim on fraud. The delay in the presentation of three main remaining components of the Petroleum Industry Bill PIB to the National Assembly by the Presidency is giving Niger Deltans cause for worry. Consequently, they are calling on the Presidency to disclose the whereabouts of the PIB and transmit it to the National Assembly for immediate passage owing to its great potentials for transforming the oil and gas industry. Correspondent Tekena Amiofori tells us more.
In December 2008, the Petroleum Industry Bill was introduced in the National Assembly to replace the obsolete Petroleum Act of 1969 and transform the oil and gas sector, which for several decades had been the bulwark of the Nigerian economy. The arrival of the PIB was timely as it sought to achieve the following objectives: strengthen capacity for regulators in the industry, optimize benefits accruing to the federal government, maintain peace and stability in the Niger Delta, and restore investors' confidence in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. In spite of its laudable objectives, several attempts to have the PIB passed had come against a brick wall in the National Assembly. To facilitate its passage, Nigeria's federal lawmakers in 2016 split the PIB into four components: the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, Petroleum Industry Administration Bill, Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill, and the Petroleum Host and Impacted Communities Bill. In May 2017, the Senate finally passed a revised version of the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill in what was generally applauded as a decisive step taken to sanitize the country's ailing oil and gas industry. However, in August 2018, President Buhari withheld his assent to the bill over constitutional and legal issues. After a long wait on Mr. President to revert to the National Assembly on the PIB, the Presidency finally hinted in December 2019 that the proposed legislation will be transmitted to the National Assembly for passage by June 2020. With the National Assembly yet to take delivery of the PIB in the third quarter of 2020, which is already fast spent, many Nigerians are getting more curious over the whereabouts of the Petroleum Industry Bill.
Beyond asking, where is the PIB? I think the next question to ask is, who is afraid of the PIB?
You know that if this PIB is eventually passed and it comes into effect, there is a lot that is going to change with respect to the oil and gas sector, and a lot of sharp practices that is being carried out will be checked on the part of the IOCs and of course on the part of the NNPC as it is run today.
Nigeria's oil and gas industry currently accounts for over 80% of the country's foreign exchange, but contributes less than 20% of its gross domestic product, due largely to the challenges of poor governance, maladministration, and declining investment profile in the petroleum sector. This probably explains why in December last year, 3 major deep offshore fields, Bonga, Owowo, and Preowei, were declared economically non-viable. Based on the current scenario, it is speculated that Nigeria's oil output could further fall as much as 35% if the much-needed reforms are not implemented in the petroleum industry.
If you have a serious sector like the petroleum industry, if you are a serious-minded investor, what you want to look at is to ensure that the laws that are governing that sector is properly, they are properly outlined, and it helps to guide or safeguard investment that people are going to do there.
For over a decade, the PIB has been stalled by what is attributed to stiff opposition from powerful forces averse to meaningful reforms in the oil and gas industry. The uncertainty surrounding the PIB is further heightened by the inability of some federal lawmakers to give account of its whereabouts. According to Honorable Fred Agbedi, representing Sagbama Ekeremo Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, the proposed legislation is far from becoming a reality.
I can categorically say PIB is very, very far away. In the last 8 assembly, Sariki and Dogara led the way. What did we hear from the executive? The parliament took on the initiative without the executive. So at some point, the executive started fighting back. Even when the consultants had cause to now go around the executive to brief them on the initiative and how far they have gone. Of course, they ended up in scuttling it. I think it's a problem of Nigerian politics. Everybody wants to have free access to the oil industry, oil and gas industry. Government uses it, those who are in power uses it to empower themselves and do whatever they want to do with it. And they feel that if you have the right laws, they won't have access to the oil and gas industry vote. I think that's the politics that is setting us back.
Without a proper legislation in place to reinvent Nigeria's poorly governed oil and gas industry, the country will in no distant time lose its position as a major player in the global oil industry to new emerging oil-producing countries with more attractive petroleum industry laws in sub-Saharan Africa. This underscores the urgent need for the federal government to come out clean on the actual status of the Petroleum Industry Bill and possibly summon the political will to have it passed without further delays in the collective interests of Nigerians.
Inside the Niger Delta.
In August 2011, the United Nations Environment Programme UNEP submitted its findings and recommendations to the federal government after carrying out an extensive investigation into crude oil impacted sites in Ogoni land. 9 years after that historic event, what steps have been taken by the federal government to implement the UNEP report on Ogoni land? This was the thrust of a recent media briefing by the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project HYPREP in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. Correspondent Lovely Ofigo was there.
Some 5 years after it suffered a huge setback on account of non-implementation, the UNEP report on environmental pollution in Ogoni land was finally considered and implemented by the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. The Ogoni cleanup project was officially flagged off in August 2016 and a governance structure put in place the following year to facilitate the process. The coordinator of Hydrocarbon Remediation Project HYPREP, Dr. Marvin Dekil, during a press briefing in Port Harcourt, gave a progress report on the Ogoni cleanup project as part of activities marking the 9th anniversary of the submission of the UNEP report on Ogoni land to the federal government on August 4th, 2011.
Most of the companies only started work in July last year, and they are on course. At this point now, 21 of those contractors, some have technically finished. Some are about 80%. Most of them are going to be finishing in the next couple of weeks, but some have finished as we speak. So we are at the point where we are running up with the first 21 set of contractors.
Dr. Dekil highlighted HYPREP's collaboration with development agencies like Stakeholders Democracy Network (SDN), International Institute of Tropical Agriculture (IITA), and the River State government to aid its Sustainable Livelihood Program in line with UNEP's recommendations for livelihoods restoration for oil-impacted communities in Ogoniland.
When we build the facilities in the communities, we are going to have to partner with the community themselves, with the local government, and with the River State government, so that once the facility in place, it continues to run. It cannot run if we don't have the buy-in, the participation of the community, especially the community, in driving that.
In line with UNEP's recommendation, HYPREP is set to build a Center of Excellence, which is a world-class facility where environmental remediation will be taught to young scientists. Dr. Dekil said the Center of Excellence would partner with the Kentarawiwa Polytechnic Bori and other local and international institutions to build capacity.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Well, that's our package on Inside the Niger Delta for today. The program will return same time, same station next week. Until then, you can follow us on our social media handles showing right now on your screen. Until next week, remember to wash your hands regularly, maintain safe social distance, and also maintain proper hygiene to avoid contracting the deadly coronavirus disease. I am Mamode Akugha. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.